Get 30% shorter average wait time when you buy and book online at discounttire.com. Discount Tire. Let's get you taken care of.
Hi there, I am Adam Givers. This is another episode of our podcast. We are here in Ordu, Turkey. It is still a pandemic. On this hot July day, we try to figure out or find out about hate. We are using this new format. Like I said, I don't have any fixed or any fixed definition about hate. Rather, I invite everyone to come with me to join this journey, this research. We try to figure out what hate is, what it comes with, and so on. So the last time we somehow talked about the social aspect of hate, the connection to an object. We talked about cars and that a car can be considered, and that a car is being considered as an extension of you, where you some sort of perceive yourself, where you show yourself to the world. But this has nothing to do with cars. This is in general with any goods whatsoever. Goods are some sort of status symbols which will tell you about who you are, and then we draw the connection to friends, family, that you make friends and family with the people you know of, with the people you surround with. And then of course we try to connect this with fear, because we saw in one definition that there is a connection, or would be, we assume, according to this definition. We found on Google and Merriam website that hate correlates with fear and anger. We will talk about anger as well, but however, that there is a connection, and we then try to some sort of bring in fear in that sense, that you fear to lose your car, but it's not rather that you fear that you could lose the car, or what you really fear is that you lose the value which it brings with that the car, because the car could be stolen, whatever, that you would use some sort of part of your manliness, or anything that you think or assume that it is manly, and so is with you being ridiculed. This was a bit intricate, where we said if you come from a social background, whatever, and we will delve deeper into this, but when you come from a social background or whatever, from a social background, then you fear that you could be ridiculed, that you could be diminished, and that your friends and so on, when they are ridiculed, diminished, or what your interest, this is what is mostly happening. I mean, I don't know, when you, for example, listen to some sort of music which is partially an expression of yourself, which tells about you, whatever this music is. This can be migrant music. This is very common. I mean, if you're a migrant whatsoever, and if you listen to music and then it is undermined, or look at country music, for example. Country music in the US has a very bad reputation, and if you like country music in that sense, then you would some sort of hear this prejudice. This is against country music and so on. Then this undermines, in a way, you feel insulted, hateful or vengeful in that sense, whatever it is. Then you feel some sort of diminished, and we then try to connect this to fear. I mean, you will try to avoid. This is what is reasonable. I mean, if you fear for your car to be stolen, because with this car, or on this car, depends your value, your social appeal, your perception in public, then you will do anything to preserve this car. Whereas with social interactions, this is difficult. We talked a little bit about the fact that it is pretty much easy to own a car or possess a car, because a car has no own mind. It doesn't speak or whatever, whereas with friends or whatever, or in general social interactions, whereas with people who uh, think or should hopefully think independently, and that these things then are different in that sense. That then fear would be the or some sort of a practice. This is what then really comes to 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 strike that fear then, because fear is historic. We some sort of talked about it very briefly, that fear is some sort of a plan. You try to avoid a certain situation, like if it is with a car, you will make amendments or whatever to protect it from being stolen. I mean, ensure it protected against thieves, or as well as in your home. I mean, if you can afford it, you will try to make your home more secure, and and so on. So this means that you go through a lot of plans to avoid your value being destroyed, or your perception in society. I mean, is if you perceive that this car presents you in society, if you perceive that this car is about you and so on, you will of course protect. And this is the same, you could assumably, with social interactions. I mean, if you fear to being undermined, and we will talk about this a little bit later, more in detail, according a special example. But if you fear being undermined, diminished whatsoever, then of course you will in a way try to avoid interactions, or in a way this is what is always happen when you come from a lower social background whatsoever, and then you are in high society. You either will avoid it because you don't want to make a fool of yourself, or you try to react in a way, whatever. But of course, you fear because assumably fear that you would be considered a simpleton, an outcast, whatever. We assumed in a way that everyone wants to be liked, but this is of course not the case. You don't. I mean, if you just do not care about other people, and this is what we will talk about it as well. But here we will only talk about briefly. But if you this is actually later with hate, but if you just do not care or respect anybody, then you do not care what this person thinks about you. I mean, if you have nothing but contempt for someone, for some people whatsoever, then it is understandable that you do not care anything about their opinions, and and so on. and and then what is of course very important and interesting is that it in those social interactions. I mean, this is what we talked about. If the car, your car brings you in a way a fulfillment, you are in a way feel more value or able or whatever it is. But and this is as well as in a social relationship. I mean, for those people who might assume that there is no connection whatsoever between a car and a social interaction, well, yes, there are, especially with beautiful women. There are some men, and I heard them a lot, that which some sort of see a beautiful woman, mostly white and blonde. They see these women as, in a way, a status symbol, which would then tell about your manliness, which then is some sort of, in a way, is some sort of a symbol of power, wealth, whatever, especially if it is a model, and so on. So that there is indeed a connection. So we do. This is something I have may have forgotten, but this is in a way to possess something, to to own it in a way which then is an extension of your self. This is what we call the individual aspect of fear. So we are still of the individual basis, and there all your friends, all your interests, whatever it is, this is always an extension about yourself. It is an identity of yourself. The music you love, or the car you drive, the home and the things you listen to, and we said that these identities, this is partially individual, this is true, but as well as it has to do a lot with where you grew up with, and as well as those issues. I mean, this is what we will talk about it briefly as well, but in every social milieu, in every social group, there are some interests, knowledges, and so on. But there are as well as some issues you deal with. I mean, this can be issues about being recognized in some social classes. There is the issue about being recognized, being taken for granted in other social classes. It is rather about survival and so on, but not survival in that sense we would see. I mean, this is of course something entirely different when you have to survive for your daily honor, or if you have to, if you're struggling to make ends meet. This is of course, we do not negate that, not at all. I mean, I know how it is, how this is, and this can be very arduous and cumbersome. But however, there is special struggles, special ideas, and especially with rap music, you see this. I mean, I would rather, even those gangster rap, you would some sort of hear and see they talk about those social issues. I mean, one very good rapper, which I think is one of the best, or was one of the best rappers, was Tupac Shakur, because he talked about those social issues. He talked about what it is to be in a ghetto. You have to be aware of one thing. I mean, if you grow up in Europe like I do, I grew up on the countryside in Europe, in rural Austria. You do not know what a ghetto is. I mean, you assume this is something which is made up by Hollywood, assumably. But then, if you hear these people talk about real issues in those ghettos, and this is of course something you have to understand, that this is indeed very interesting in sociology, that they can express or give these things in a way room to understand it. I would recommend everyone to go or listen to it. However, this means your interests are of course determined by your social group you wake up with. But of course, this is something we will later talk about. This desire, and this is that there is some sort of always something which is always catchy through all social milieux, through all social classes. For example, love is, even if you're poor middle, or let's not say poor, but if you are working class, middle class, or if you're upper class, nevertheless you have a love, or love movies. Like the expression of love is more or less the same, or how you see love, and so is so on, is pretty much the same. There are many more, so there are indeed some emotions, some feelings, whatever you want to say, which is the same through all these social classes. I mean, one issues then with these approaches. I mean, we again still some sort of trapped in this Freudian object relationships, which is very common within the psychoanalysis, or very known in the psychoanalysis, and the dominating strength within the psychoanalysis. However, so that we are still stuck in this, so that there is still some sort of the object which gives you pleasure. We in this thought did not went beyond it, and again we have to say, I mean, this is one of the big issues with Freudian object relationship, that it is rather always subjective, and you always think that is in a way illusionary, that it is not real, that it is made up and minded, and in a way we or I think this is not very sufficient. This goes beyond that. Beyond that, so fear, like we talked about it previously, has indeed an objective nature and as well as hate. So if fear can have an objective ground, and this means reasonable. If you can fear something which is real, which is there, whereas until now we rather talked about some illusions and so on, and this would some sort of make fear obsolete as well, and this is, I would say, rather insufficient. That's why we have to inquire further. I mean, one thing we have to clear beforehand, and this is what I will argue as well as this. Of course, I mean, we talked about fear is an imminent danger. It is noxious, which we came up with this definition on Google and Merriam-Webster, so that you try to avoid something harmful. Fear is something that you could be exposed to a situation. This is what we said. Fear is the situation is very important. It is rather the object is secondary. This is what we saw with the car as well. The object is secondary. It is rather what the object gives you, what the object comes with, as well as with friends or whatever. I mean, if you have a very, I would say, very famous friends, celebrities, whatever, then of course this comes with prestige, and people are not really interested in the object, but rather with the prestige with what it comes. For example, if someone wants to steal someone's identity, it is partially only this person partially only dreams of being this another person whose identity he or she has stolen, but it is rather about the prestige that comes with it, and so on. And people are thinking about it, and this is then when fear is rather real the situation, and you could be exposed to a situation which in a way could be inevitable, and this is what we will talk about it right now, because we do not live in an archaic society anymore where fear, despite the fact that we are in the pandemic, I mean here in the pandemic, fear that you could catch this coronavirus is real, especially if you are old, if you have reached a certain age, or if you are some sort of part of this group whatsoever. You are afraid of catching this virus in a way or another. However, but besides this pandemic fear in that sense, or we do not have to fear anymore to be eaten by wild animals, or that you some sort of could not defend yourself against wild animals in that sense, or that we would live in societies entirely lawless. I mean, of course, I know what I'm talking about. It is not always the case, and some of us, they live indeed in lawless societies. I mean, this is something we should not sweep aside. Nevertheless, overall, in a civilized society whatsoever, we do not fear for our lives anymore, because fear in that sense would really mean that you are put into a position where the result could be your death. This is what it means. Your physical death. And but now now of course we know that fear in that sense, especially in social media and so on, that death can have many meanings. I mean, it can be considered obviously physical death or fear of death. However, but in this modern society, it is you can consider, and this is what we will see as well as among many young folks, that this is that you could be outcast, that you could not be part of a society, of a group, whatever, that you have then or that you live in a social caste, because this is as well as those places where you belong to. So it is not very easy. I mean, if you're the upstarter, despite the fact uh, that everyone is talking about free opportunities whatsoever, so it has become more and more difficult to be the son or daughter of an uneducated person and then rise through the ranks, because now the schools and everything has become difficult and so on. But as well as, so this means that fear of being an outcast comes as well as with the loss of certain privileges. We talked about this. I mean, there are many privileges, and that you could then lose them, fold them, whatever it is. Um, and this would mean that fear would then mean that you are put into a situation where you then lose the equality, lose the same opportunities as well. And this has, of course, a huge impact on your life, on your future, what could be of you, and as well as we will see later as on your identity, because your groups, social groups, whatever it is, they are part of your belonging, part of your identity, whatever. Because we have a lot of young folks who even commit suicide because they're outcasted in a way. So fear, in that sense, in our society, have to be. Or if you want, you can consider social media as a jungle where people go after each other. So social media can be really nasty and brutal. Believe me, if you are at the other end of the spectrum, then there is really tough, and people are mean. They are mean, or they can be mean, especially if they are far away. Then it is always easier. I mean, if you do not have to face someone, it is always easier to talk about or in a way to brag or talk more than you should do. However, but this is as well very important. So one major issue in our time is being socially outcast, and this despite the fact that relationships became looser. I mean, this is what you see on Facebook, and we talked about it a little bit. So that this friendship has, in a way, a new meaning, a new understanding, a new social bonds have a different understanding, but nevertheless, social bonds are rather about value, how you value yourself, about the presumption of yourself and so on. But as well as that, we have to or that we always identify with a group. This group gives us, we depend on a group, a special people, whatever it is, and this special group group where we belong to gives us meaning and some sort of happiness, self-value. You could then see some sort of an objective. You belong to a special circle. In school is this, and in school you always find this, and Hollywood some sort of always plays this game over and over again. I mean, this is from a European perspective. You always watch this with awe, and you never really know, is this real? Is this how American high school work? Or I don't know, does every American play football? Yes, no, well, I don't know. In Europe, people mostly play soccer. However, it is, I mean, Hollywood shows it that you always see that some sort of cliques or groups in school, and that some people always want to belong them. And if you fall out, if you're not part of this, then this is some sort of harmful for you. Or there are even studies on social media that you get addicted to likes, and that you really need those likes, and these likes on social media, they are like a drug for you, and uh, and and they dislikes and so on, they really give you meaning, they give you importance whatsoever. It's for what you get dislike whatsoever. This is part of your identity. This is part of your understanding of your association chain. This is a very important word I want to talk about as well. And this would then mean, or how can we draw some sort of hate there? I mean, because this is what we will always try to seek, always correlated. I mean, this is where we try to some sort of draw the bridge to other thing, because fear, we said, is an emotion which could lead to hate, and there we could some sort of, where I try to draw a bridges that those social groups, this is especially with secret societies or whatever you have. I mean, with any sorority groups, whatever you have, they have always some sort of rituals. They have some sort of certain entry, because every group whatsoever is special, or can only be special by excluding others. Because if everyone can join it, then where is the value of it? So value, in a way, is always considered, is either scarcity. I mean, it is either real scarcity, or is perceived scarcity, where like you would you can of course create scarcity. This is nothing which is out of thinking it, and it has been done quite often in business. For example, if you produce rare cars, rare jewelry, whatever, the real thing is that they are valuable, as well as it comes with financial privileges that other people are exempt from having access to it. This makes things valuable as well, and then those groups with all these rituals and so on, they could be some sort of exhausting, that you could think, I mean, I have to go through all this procedure, whatever it is, and then I don't get anything in return. This is what you would see, some sort of in object relationship, that you closely encounter what you have brought into the, or what's your input in this relationship, and what do you get, what is your output, and then if the output does not match the input, you some sort of go frustrated, hateful, whatever it is. So this could be one explanation where people could consider vengeful, whatever. Or if you want to see, I mean, we talked about this with individuals. I mean, if you see your friends or whatever you have as an extension of yourself, then those friends, they could indeed disappoint you. Disappointment then would mean when they do not act as they should be. I mean, or when they reflect badly upon you. I mean, I know no experience, of course. This is when my older brother decided to be a transsexual. I mean, this was unheard of in our society, and I quite frankly did not know about it for a long time. It was kept from me. I only heard it very late, where it was probably too late. However, this led to a lot of hate, a lot of anger here in Turkey. People were upset, people were mad, because these people, they came from a certain social background, where people are connected to each other, where people know each other, and so this then reflected badly on them, because everyone in your family, whatever, they are being considered as an extension of you. So here in Turkey, this led to a lot of violence even against me, because I was his brother, whatever. I mean, I didn't even knew it at that time. It was kept from me for whatever reason it is. I mean, we talked about it as well. One of the reasons why people do not tell you things is because they want to have power over you, or they just like you, or they just want you to get lost in a maze, whatever it is. I mean, you could see some sort of these family, friends, whatever they are intention, and when they then disappoint you, then do not fulfill those expectations. What's been said on you, this is way more heavy, and especially within the Turkish community, this is something we will talk about it, and we actually talked about it in male culturalism as well. I mean, if you are in the Turkish community, the only way you can compete with the very successful German and Austrian population is if you put yourself on a moral high ground, if you put yourself on a pedestal where you consider yourself as more manly than others. This is how you think you can compete with others. And then, of course, this was a huge blow when one of us decided or came to the conclusion he's not a man, but rather a woman, and that he then even has to and has to go through procedures, whatever. So this was a huge blow, disappointment, and this led to hate, anger, and we will talk about anger as well, because we have to differentiate a little bit. But as you see, this is a loss of, in a way, disappointment. I mean, another way of disappointment is children. I mean, if you consider children as part of you, as your extension, this is done very often. I mean, if you have you some sort of project, everything what you did not accomplish in your life on your children, they should do it better than you. I mean, we always conceal it behind the statement, yeah, our children should have it better than us, but it is rather they should accomplish what we have not accomplished, or whatever it is. So we sometimes push our children beyond the limit, just because we wanted to be this or that so desperately. And this is very common. You see this in sport, in art, whatever you have, where parents did not succeed or were in a way mediocre, and then they of course want everyone want their children to succeed. I mean, this is very common in among Nazis, or within the Nazist research. Then parents some sort of share their children's successes through the as well, so as part of them. So this is then nothing else than a younger version of this person who is successful, whatever it is. But of course, we have to say it is indeed reasonable as well. I mean, if you are a parent, whatever, or if you're a parent, then of course it is reasonable that you fear for the life of your children as well. I mean, it is not only about it is not it is not only about being your child, or whether what sexual orientation your child is. I mean, my parents died in 2012. I mean, we never knew how their reactions would have been to my older brother becoming a transsexual. I mean, we don't know. However, nevertheless, in the end, this is your child, and you will never forget. I mean, I always uttered my skepsis and doubt about transsexuality. Whatever. I mean, why can't you just be gay? Why do you have to go through this procedure? I mean, in that sense, whatever. I mean, I don't want to go too deep into it, but it is indeed the case that I mean, if you're obese, you don't feel well in your body. However, that some people who are not attractive for what reason they don't feel well about themselves, and it makes you actually stronger. And you always have to understand, or should ask yourself, why do I need to be different? So these issues about plastic surgery or of any surgery whatsoever, this is always as well as an issue about or how you like yourself, or for that matter, what happened to you, because you must not. Um, you have to be always aware that things may have trauma. This is something we always have to look into it, because a lot of people have a traumatic background, and there are of course some issues like that. You do one one famous example, for example, is Michael Jackson. I always bring this up. Michael Jackson, who was beaten by his father to on stage. I mean, his father was the one who was pulling the strings, his careers whatsoever. And you see some sort of, in Michael Jackson's life, he had something traumatic in it, and you could always see what the reason why he wanted to bleach his face was, because he didn't want to be his father, or so. So this is something you always have to consider. I mean, this has nothing to do with my father, but there are other persons, or there were other persons with whom my brother grew up with. My brother, my older brother, was up to his fifth year birthday. He grew up in Turkey, so this was pretty much different. My older brother Öndaş, he was born in Austria, yes, but in Austria at that time things were difficult, and my parents then decided to bring him to Turkey, where the family would look after him, so that they could go work, could start a living. So this was common actually, and and this may have led to some effects whatsoever. And these first years, especially the first 5 years, 3 to 5 years, they're indeed very formative. And if you then have become the victim of a trauma of some people there, of some despicable people whose very existence is just an outrage to everything what humanity stands for, whatever it is. Whatever it is, I mean, however, this is something we always wanted to take into consideration, and this is indeed a very case that you some sort of fear to be the person, that you in a way fear to be the to become the person you don't want to be, that you fear to become the person who is victim, who is oppressive, whatever. I mean, this is even called, there's even a very famous expression for it, or diagnosis. This is called Stockholm syndrome. This is when hostages, or those people who are being kidnapped, when they more and more through being exposed to their perpetrators, that they more and more become like them, that they more and more think like them, and so on, and then even become accomplices with them, and so on. So this is indeed very, very frightening, thoughtful, and this is something we should always be aware of, and this in a way fits in this as well. I mean, it is fear and hatred. I mean, this is with Michael Jackson. We knew, because Michael Jackson even said it. I mean, I didn't do admit I only heard about it through second hand, so not from the origin. However, but Michael Jackson is said never wanted to be like his father of this oppressive figure, and you can as well translate it to other things as well. So someone feared to become a certain person, and we finally in the end found out who this person is, what my brother probably didn't want it to become, this despicable human being. However, but this was not my father, not at all. And however, I mean, this is indeed fear to become this person, or fear in that sense, sense, if you want to understand, fear was rather that to hurt someone else. This is what you fear as well, that you hurt people. I mean, this is always difficult. I mean, abuse, trauma. This is severe. This has a severe effect on your psyche, and this is something you carry a lifelong. I mean, this is yeah, it's not easy to talk with someone, because in order to, it's not that people do not listen. I don't believe that people do not listen. It's rather, I mean, people just do not know. I mean, it is shallowness. I mean, I talked about it a little while, that more and more science has become shallow. Why it has to become shallow? Because now what we all ask about scientific evidence, but these scientific evidence are mostly, or has to be mostly, shallow, that you have no room whatsoever for assumption or some reasonable hypothesis, and this then leads to certain developments. I mean, of course, we talked about it, Freud, or the psychoanalysis with Freud. This is not really science, and if you then try to argue with Freud, you come to or go down a certain road. But this is what we are some sort of struggling with right here as well. I mean, I'm trying to get away from this Freudian pleasure principle, from this simplistic object fixation, but we are, every time we are drawn to it. I mean, this is of course, this hate, or this analysis of hate, is an attempt to go beyond this approach of Freud. So we want to try to find social understanding, and this is what we will try to do in the next episode. We will more and more try to seek social understanding, and we try to do it right now as well. But of course, before we can continue, we have to bring in another word, and this is anger, because we some sort of thought right now that hate is something really a dislike of the existence of something, and that hate has a history. So, and we assume, this is again a hypothesis, that it does not happen at once. You do not just hate someone with a snip of your finger. That is history, and this is where we then talk the next time of anger. And anger is some sort of between aversion. You don't just avoid it, whereas anger is about your identity, and hate is then indeed the dislike of the existence of something. And this is, I think, very important. The difference between hate and aversion is that indeed your identity is part of it. So this was Adem Kirbas from Ordu, Turkey, in this hot July day. I mean, I'm not used to this heat. I grew up in Austria. However, I hope that you all are doing fine in this pandemic, and that you take care of yourself. Bye.
There are more ways to celebrate than ever before at the Jeep Celebration event. Hurry in for great deals today on the only brand that lets you go anywhere and do anything. And right now, get $1,500 total cash allowance on the purchase of a 2022 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4. Don't miss this great offer. Go to Jeep.com to find your local dealer. Hurry into the Jeep Celebration event today. Residency restrictions apply. Must take retail delivery by 5/2/22. Jeep is a registered trademark of FCA US LLC.